Well, welcome to the Caledonia Gathering. My name's Corey, and today we are going to be talking about how to be happy. Well, we're so glad that you've joined us for this online service. You know, it's our mission to tell people about the life and love of Jesus and to inspire you to learn to live and love like Him. And if that's something you're interested in, you haven't done so yet, we really want to encourage you to hit the subscribe button down below. Now, if you've got kids, we've got a special experience just for them created by our Family Ministries Director, Johanna, and you can find the link for that in the description below in the video. Now today, before we jump back into our content on how to be happy according to Jesus, we're going to spend some time singing together. So I want to encourage you, wherever you are, whether you're at home, you're at the cobblestone, you're at the storefront, or you're at the pole barn, whichever location you're at, we want to invite you to stand up right where you are in body or spirit, and let's sing together.
You are here, you're moving in our midst, and I worship you, I worship you. You are here, working in this place, I worship you, I worship you. You are here, you're moving in our midst, and I worship you, I worship you. You are here, you're working in this place, and I worship you, and I worship you. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are here, you're touching every heart. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, healing every life. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, you're turning lives around. I worship you, I worship you. miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are.
When the music fades and all is stripped away, and I simply come, longing just to bring something that's of worth that will bless your heart. I'll bring you more than a song, for a song in itself is not what you have required. You search much deeper within, through the way things appear. You're looking into my heart. I'm coming back to the heart of worship, and it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the thing I've made it, and it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. King of endless worth, no one could express how much you deserve. Though I'm weak and poor, all I have is yours, every single breath. I'll bring you more than a song, for a song in itself is not what you have required. You search much deeper within, through the way things appear. You were looking into my heart. I'm coming back to the heart of worship, and it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the thing I made it, when it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm coming back to the heart of worship, and it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the thing I made it, and it's all about you. It's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus.
Well, the other night, Alana asked me if I wanted to watch a movie with her, and I said sure. And she asked me, well, what do you want to watch? And astounded, said, well, honey, I want to watch the same thing I always want to watch. You don't have to ask. I want to watch an action comedy movie. You know me well. I want action that's going to keep me entertained for an hour and a half, and I want something that's also at the same time going to make me laugh a little bit. And the truth is, if it's going to be light on the action, it needs to be heavy on the laughs. And if it's going to be light on the laughs, then I better see Liam Neeson taking down an army of assassins with a huge artillery all by himself to save his daughter. Now, huge surprise to me, this isn't the movie that Alana was after or in the mood for. However, I showed her a couple of previews, I made my case, and she relented. And we watched the movie that I picked. I was amazed. But about 20 minutes into the movie, she looked over at me while I was on the couch, and she found me doing what? Scrolling through my phone. And she said to me, "Hey, Corey, what are you doing?" And I said, well, I'm watching the movie. And she said, "No, you aren't. You're scrolling through your phone." And I said, "Well, yeah, honey. I mean, this movie is great and all, but in real life, there was a plot to kidnap the governor, and the Great British Baking Show had an article that I wanted to read, and I want to know if we're going to get the stimulus check or not." Now, I don't know about you, but my guess is that I'm not alone here, right? I mean, don't you ever find yourself doing this? You start out doing one thing, and then, well, you get distracted by another thing, and then you get distracted by something else. I thought it was Instagram's fault. I'd be watching TV or a movie, and before I know it, the credits are rolling on the screen, and I missed most of it because I was scrolling through Instagram. So I took Instagram off my phone. Turns out it's not Instagram's fault. It's me. I'm so easily distracted. And so we instituted a policy in our house that our phones now have office hours. And the reason for that is because we know something that I'm pretty sure you know intuitively, although maybe you've never put words to it, but perpetually distracted people aren't really happy people. Distracted people aren't happy people. And you know this. It's hard to enjoy anything when you are constantly distracted by everything else. I mean, happiness requires being present in the moment. It's hard to enjoy dinner out with your friends when you're constantly watching the TV that's hanging out in the bar, going, what was that? What did you say? I missed it. It's hard to enjoy the colors of fall that we have right now when your face is constantly buried in a phone. It's hard to enjoy anything when you're constantly distracted by everything else. And I wonder, is it possible that one of the reasons that we're not happy as a culture, one of the reasons that perhaps you're not happy as a person, is because of how distracted we are? I mean, believe it or not, Jesus would actually answer that question with a resounding yes, and then I think he would kind of chuckle and say, but it's actually way worse than you thought. Now, before we get ahead of ourselves, let me remind you of what it is that we've been talking about together. We're walking through this series called How to Be Happy According to Jesus. And so far, we've learned about some of Jesus' counterintuitive teachings on how a person can be happy in his new reality. We talked about being poor in spirit. We talked about those who mourn. We talked about the meek, those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. And we talked about the merciful last week. But today's statement might be one of the most important ones. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Now, what you might not know is that once again, Jesus is pulling some ancient wisdom from the Psalms that his disciples would have learned as kids, and then giving it kind of his own little twist. This comes from Psalm 24. It says, "Who may ascend the mountain of the Lord? Who may stand in his holy place? The one who has clean hands and a pure heart, who does not trust in any idol or swear by a false god, they will receive blessing from the Lord." It's almost got this kind of sword in the stone King Arthur vibe to it, right? I mean, who can stand in the presence of God? Only the one who is pure of heart. Only he or she can pull the sword from the stone. And then Jesus changes the sentiment a little bit. He doesn't say that the pure in heart can stand in a holy place, in a temple, a house where apparently God lives. No, he says that the pure of heart aren't going to stand. They're going to see God. Now, that would have got the disciples' attention. Jesus, I don't know you. This is kind of religion 101, but no one can see God. I mean, Moses saw God's back, and his face was on fire, shining like the sun for days. I mean, we've been told our whole lives, Jesus, that if we see God, we'll die on the spot, instantly. So what are you talking about? Pure in heart, get to see God? Worthy question. In fact, I'd suggest it's worth our spending some time together here this morning, wondering, what in the world does Jesus mean by pure in heart and seeing God? And what does any of it have to do with your happiness? Well, let's start with what it means to be pure of heart, because I think there's a little confusion about that. As it turns out, it really has nothing to do with being childlike or innocent or destined for kingship, doing something nobody else can do, like pulling a sword from a stone. But rather, to be pure of heart means to be single-minded. It's about having a single devotion in life from which everything else trickles down. Alternatively, to be double-minded is to have a split devotion, or to put it more in modernly, to be distracted. And this was common throughout the history of Israel, the Israelite people, the disciples' own ancestors. They were invited to have a single devotion to God, from which all of the rest of life was supposed to take its cues. And yet they were regularly accused of dividing their devotion and offering their devotion to other gods and idols. Hence why Psalm 24 says that they should have clean hands and a pure heart, not trusting in idols and not worshiping other gods. Now, when most modern day people like you and me, when we hear those words, idols and gods, maybe you sort of brush them off as archaic ways that our ancestors looked at the world. But of course, we don't believe in gods floating around in the sky or in the air anymore. And we certainly don't bow down to little golden or wooden statues today, right? So we don't have gods and idols. But the truth is, to believe that we've moved beyond the gods and idols would be blind to our reality. Let me show you what I mean. I think we still worship the same gods that our ancient ancestors did. We are still as liable to double-mindedness as all those who have gone before us in humanity. I mean, we don't call them by their ancient names like Mammon and Aphrodite and Artemis, but we still certainly fall prey to their seduction. I'd call them deified distractions. And today I want to talk about three of them, three deified distractions that cause our double-mindedness today. And as a result, they blind us from God and keep us from being truly happy. Let's start with the first one, Mammon, the god of money. Jesus was once famously quoted saying that you can't serve two masters. That's a divided devotion. You're going to love one and neglect and hate the other. He then applied that idea to money. He said you can't devote yourself both to God and to Mammon, the god of money. And yet Mammon is a constant distraction for so many of us. It blinds us from the character and will of God in our lives. Now, how do you know if you're worshiping the god of money? Well, the truth is, greed's kind of hard to see in the mirror. I mean, we often think of greed or worship of money as an obsession of having and getting and making more money, and it's easy to observe yourself. It's easy to absolve yourself of any guilt of greed because, well, you could just look around. There's always going to be somebody in your life who has and keeps and makes plenty more money than you do. But the distraction of money it's not really about an obsession of accumulation. No, rather it's a constant anxiety about money, whether you have lots or not. But Jesus warned about greed more than he warned about anything else. He said, be careful of the excessive anxiety about money and possessions. A man does not consist in the abundance of his possessions alone. When you're distracted by money, your net worth becomes your self-worth. You only matter as much as you make. And this is problematic because if your ultimate security and significance in life comes from money, well, you're going to be blinded from seeing God, seeing his work in your life, seeing his will for you. Instead of asking, well, I wonder what God thinks about this or that, I wonder what God wants me to do here, you instead see everything in terms of how it benefits or it threatens your own net worth. Because your net worth is what truly gives you an ultimate sense of safety and security and significance. You view every decision then wondering, well, how is this going to affect my bank account? How is this going to affect my savings account? How is this going to affect our retirement contributions? How is this going to impact the lifestyle that we want to maintain? And relationships and opportunities for generosity, missional living, serving, education, they all get viewed through this financial lens. The person who's sort of distracted by money is blinded to the work and the will of God in their lives. You may not believe in mammon, but if you draw your ultimate significance and security from money, you're still worshiping the same God. Now, the second deified distraction used to go by the ancient name of Aphrodite, but for our purposes, we could just call it sex and romance. Ernest Becker, who's a Pulitzer Prize-winning author, he said that as the world loses its belief in God, the thing that's going to take God's place will be love and romance. We'll turn romantic relationships into our new God, our new way of finding ultimate fulfillment and purpose in life. Now, the person who's distracted by this deity turns their romantic entanglements into their sort of source of security and significance in life. In other words, I know that I matter so long as I've got him. Or I know that I'm okay as long as I've got her in my life. I know I'll be okay as long as I have a spouse or a partner or a girlfriend or a boyfriend. When you elevate romantic or sexual relationships to a deified distraction level, your self-worth ends up being tied up in your relational status. Now, I don't want you to misunderstand me on this. I'm not saying that there's something wrong with being married or dating or having romantic relationships. That's not what I'm saying at all. But the question I think is worth asking is it possible that you're putting too much weight into your relational status right now? And this is problematic for a number of reasons if you do. First of all, when your self-worth is tied up in being in a relationship with someone, you're far more likely to get into and stay in unhealthy and even harmful relationships, simply because you just feel safer and more secure as a person when you're with or sleeping with or holding hands with anyone else, so long as you're not alone. It's dangerous for you. It's also problematic because when you make a relationship your God, you are putting a tremendous amount of pressure on the other person in the relationship. You're asking them to be your ultimate source of significance and security in life. You are setting them up to fail you because they will inevitably fall short of your expectations for them. And on top of all that, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure. You're giving yourself the impossible task of having to give that other person enough worship and devotion to keep them happy and fulfilled. I mean, it's way too much pressure. And ultimately, this will blind you from the work and will of God in your life. Because rather than looking to Him to feel okay about who you are, to feel secure and significant, you're going to view everything in life in terms of how it enhances or threatens your relational status. And so that means you might even consider cutting off good and healthy friends and family members simply to maintain an unhealthy relationship. And that's a very unhappy place to live. The third deified distraction went by the ancient name Artemis, the goddess of business and commerce. And people would pray and sacrifice to Artemis in order to procure for themselves success. I think it's the distraction of success. Ray Romano is a comedian who he's had a lot of success in his life in film and TV. He's probably most famous for his work on the show Everybody Loves Raymond. You know, even our family used to sit around at night and we would watch the show on TV. I mean, it ran for 9 seasons, like 210 episodes. But at the very beginning of Ray Romano's acting career, just as things were starting to blow up for him, his brother handed him a piece of paper that had these words scrolled onto it. What does it profit a man to gain the world, but lose his soul? In other words, chasing success will demand your soul. If you make it the source of your security and significance in life, it will take more time, more energy, more resources from you. And you know this is happening in your life when you struggle to differentiate between who you are at work and who you are as a person. When you struggle to separate your self-worth from your success in work. When that's the case, you might be distracted by this deity. And part of the problem with making success your God, your ultimate source of worth and security, is that success is an ever-moving target. I mean, once you reach your current definition of success, whatever that may be, you're going to inevitably add to it and change it. I mean, I know this because this is one of my distractions in life. I thought if I could just help one person begin to follow Jesus, I'd be happy. Well, I've done that. Success. Do you think I'm happy? No, of course not. I've got new definitions of success now. I've got new heights to reach. And so I want you to ask yourself, in the context of your career, have you ever started a sentence saying, once I, then I'll, once I reach this profit margin, then I'll relax. Once I get this degree, then I'll rest. Once the church is this big, then I'll take a break. Once I achieve this status, then I'll be happy. Then I'll settle down. If you take a once I and then insert your definition of success and finish with then I'll, I want you to know you're never going to be happy. Like the solo singer from The Greatest Showman, it'll never be enough. You see, the trouble with success is that it's this constantly moving target. It'll demand more from you and more from you than it will ever do for you. The deified distraction might demand you sacrifice your kids, your sanity, maybe your spouse. It can be so damaging to your relationships. It can be damaging to your own soul, never believing that you're enough, that you're secure enough, that you matter enough. And ultimately, to Jesus' point, it again blinds you from God. It blinds you from His will and work in your life. Everything gets evaluated through the lens of how something will help or hurt your ability to succeed, rather than what God thinks and wants for you. If I was going to flip Jesus' beatitude into the negative, I think it would have said, unhappy are those who are distracted by money, relationships, or success, for they can't see God. So the question is, well, how does one purify their heart then, Jesus? I mean, are we supposed to just try harder? Is that the answer? Hey, try harder to not be greedy. Try harder to not chase every new relationship. Try harder to not sell your soul for success. Try harder. No. Tim Keller, who writes a lot about idols and gods in our lives, says that in order to dethrone an idol, a deified distraction, in order to purify your heart, you have to actually dig below the surface to understand what it was that you were hoping those gods were going to give you in the first place. And so I wonder, whatever your distraction is, what is it that you were hoping? Money, or sex, or that relationship, or success? What is it that you were hoping it would give you? My guess is that if you spent enough time thinking about it, you'd probably arrive at some version of the following: that your heart is longing for approval and comfort, and some level of control in this life. And that whatever your distraction is, you're probably looking for some version of those things, longing for something to give you a sense of significance and security, to know that you matter and that you're safe. And really, that longing lives within all of us. It's part of being human. But the trouble is that when we go looking in any place other than God to fulfill that longing, it leads to what the Bible calls sin. It leads to brokenness. I mean, those deified distractions, they will always demand far more from you than they ever do for you, and it hurts. And when we give in to those demands, it distorts how we see ourselves, either inflating our sense of self or it destroys it. It also wrecks our relationships, our friends, our family. And ultimately, it blinds us to the work and will of God in our lives. It keeps us from true and lasting happiness. And I know you know this, because some of you have experienced the damage that has come to your relationships as a result of making money your ultimate sense of self-worth. I mean, you've experienced the missed opportunities for generosity or philanthropy because you were more concerned about how it would impact your bottom line or your lifestyle. And you've experienced also perhaps the damage to your own self-worth when you made a romantic relationship your God, your everything. And then that relationship ended. And you started wondering if you knew who you were anymore. Or perhaps you know the sting of missing out on your marriage, or on missing out on fun with friends, or missing out on your kid's childhood because you made success the highest importance in your life. You know what it's like to chase those deified distractions. And you also know the pain that they bring. So how do you purify your heart? What's the answer? Well, Keller would say, confess. Confess that you've gone looking for significance and security in all the wrong places. Confess that it's caused a world of hurt for you. I mean, this is what it means to purify your heart. Confess your sin. God, I've gone looking to satisfy the deepest longings of my heart in all of the wrong places, and none of them have worked. God, I've sacrificed my family on the altar of success. God, I've sacrificed myself on the altar of sex and romance. All of it has blinded me from seeing you, and none of it has brought me the happiness that I was promised. Purifying your heart starts with confession. And if you're willing to do it, here's what I want you to know. I want you to know that Jesus came so that you could then have your eyes open, so that you could see God. Jesus came so that you could see that God is the one in whom you can find true, lasting fulfillment. God is the one who can offer you the significance and the security that your heart so desperately longs for. He alone is the one who can offer you the significance that comes with knowing that before the creation of the world, He chose you to be His son. He chose you to be His daughter. He can offer you the security, the safety of knowing that look, even though you've royally screwed things up in life, even though I regularly undermine my own happiness and the happiness of the people around me, He was willing to send His Son to set things right. He was willing to make me right with Him and then show me how to make things right with others. Friends, your Heavenly Father loves you so much that He thought you were worth dying for. Your money is never going to do that. Your money's never going to die for you. Your romantic relationships, your sexual escapades, that they're never going to give their lives for you. Your career is never going to die for you. But if you make those things your God, they might kill you. Friends, Jesus gave His life for you to prove to you that God should be your primary devotion in life. That happiness is found in making Him first, and then letting the rest of life flow from that. When you purify your heart, dethroning those deified distractions, then you get to start experiencing that thing that is so rare in our culture today. You'd be like a kid pulling the sword from the stone. You get to be happy. So, blessed are the pure in heart, for you will see God. Before we send you off with a blessing today, I just want to offer you a quick reminder and an opportunity. If you weren't here last week, we are connecting with a local organization that helps feed kids on the weekend, and we are also working alongside of Andy, our videographer, who volunteers for an organization that helps give warm clothes to kids in the greater Grand Rapids area who need it for this winter. And so I want to remind you to pick up those items, the 100% juice boxes, the pepperoni, pizza sauce, and the individually wrapped crackers and cookies for the food thing. Pick up either all 4 of those things, add them to your grocery list, or just pick up a whole bunch of one of those things and bring them into your house gathering, throw them into the box, and we'll come around and grab those each week. And then also the same with some warm clothes, mitts, hats. We want to show mercy. We want to do good for our community here. And for those of you who are a part of the Caledonia Gathering online, our wider community, who are not necessarily local to our area, I want to encourage you to take a look in your community and find needs that you can reach out to. Find food banks and get a list of the food that they need, or organizations that are in need of warm clothes for whoever is in need of warm clothes for the winter in your area. If you're not doing anything to show mercy, to be generous to others right now, this is a perfect opportunity for you to start that generosity journey. So food for hand to hand, clothes for Andy and his group, and we'll come around and pick those up. Now, as you head out, in hopes of not being distracted, confessing your deified distractions, I want you to go with God's blessing. Go with the love of God your Father, who loves you so much. He was willing to send His one and only Son for you. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, who thought you were worth dying for, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit that binds us together, even though we are in all kinds of different places. And all God's people say.